Jeff Sharples. My name is Ian Bagg. How are you?
I'm very good. Ian Bagg, I'm kind of curious actually today what you put in for my name. Oh, you just left Jeffrey D's iPhone in there.
Yeah, I don't know who Jeffrey is. Jeffrey Donkey? Who is it?
It's Jeffrey Donkey. Come
on. Jeffrey D. Sharples.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. And it's iPhone 2, and I've been trying to change it to iPhone 1, but I guess I don't know.
And you should.
I don't have that. I don't have those capabilities. So
you're only 11 iPhones back.
Yeah, I am. Hey, I can't believe you didn't change my name. Something that I wasn't aware of.
Not today. Not today.
And you're in there under Bagg Ian.
Bagg Ian. Mine is very, very, very important today.
So what's going on? You did some shows this weekend, some big shows.
This one's starting out on a roll. You know? Thank God.
That's what happens when you're up at 3 a.m. We've got the bat. You and I are perfect. I've been up at 3 a.m. the last week, every day, just about. And you go to bed at 3 a.m.
And right now you're like, what are you doing? I don't know. What are you doing? I was in town this week. This weekend, I'm coming up. I'm in Irvine at the Improv, and looking forward to that. 5 big shows out there, big 500-seat theater, and let's see how many tickets I sell. Pretty excited about it. You're back working, I know. You're flying around.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's been busy. We're coming up on the big long weekend, so I guess the public service announcement is be safe out there. Don't be in a big rush. You know, it's really hot out west here. It was hot in Portland. I was in Portland, Seattle last couple of days, and even in LA last night when we came in, it was still like 23 Celsius, which is what, mid 70s, 74, which is pretty hot for LA at like 10 o'clock at night. So down in your neck of the woods there, down in the Long Beach, Irvine area. So
right.
Anyways, so it's kind of nice. Looks like it's gonna be a great weekend. And I'm really excited about today. Not that I'm not excited about every day, but I'm really excited about today because other than getting to talk to you and having my camera here on a bad angle.
Are you holding on to it? Looks like you're holding on to it.
No, I'm not. I got it.
We got to get you to loosen up from some of that hockey money and buy yourself a computer and a camera.
Do you let me finish what I'm excited about before you try and
what are you excited about? Sorry.
I'm a volunteer. Remember that. That's what I do. I'm excited about our guest today.
Our guest is fantastic. Our guest is, we're both big fans.
Yeah.
You going to tell who it is?
Now you say it and
I'll start with it. It's Randy
Hahn. We're getting Hahner on today.
We got Hahner from the San Jose Sharks. Also, he's been a bunch of the voices on the video games. Did you know that?
I love Hahner. I think he's one of the best in the league. I got a few friends that call games, or I guess Hahner doesn't know it yet, but he's my friend now. I love listening to Hahner. And San Jose has not been good the last couple of years, but he calls one of the best games out there. And
he's got a great voice.
He does, and he's
smooth, and he loves the game, and it's just he's got a little bit of that Harry Carey feel to him.
Mm-hmm. You know what I like?
Drinking his hand, but he isn't. He's just completely
he can make breakfast exciting. You know, you could be eating oatmeal and Hahner make it sound good. Oh, his call is awesome.
While you're having oatmeal too. What's up, old man? Getting some fiber in for you?
Hey, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm trying to put oatmeal in the diet every morning. So
good for you.
I don't know. I think I just turned 85 today, but doing that. You. But yeah, I like it.
Got to get a shirt out there. Elderly gentleman T-shirts coming.
Yeah, we're gonna get some merch going here pretty soon. Yeah.
Well, let's get. There's not much going on in the NHL, so let's get to Randy. Let's admit him. Let's admit him right now. Oh, our guest today has one of the best voices in the world, and you love it when you hear it. He's the voice of the San Jose Sharks, but that wasn't his first job. He's been other places. He's been to Edmonton. He's been around the world, and he's been back again. Here he is in San Jose. Randy Hahn, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Bagman and Jeff. It's It's great to be back on any form of broadcast because I've been laying low the last 4 or 5 months. I've been summering here in
You did a
Northern
little bit.
California.
You lie. You did the first round of the playoffs for.
Yes, I did some playoff games for TNT. Who, by the way, I don't know how much you guys got to see what they did, but I thought TNT just absolutely knocked their first shot at doing the NHL out of the park. That panel, the studio panel, was terrific, and it was really fun working for them. And it's funny because I worked on the very first live sporting event that TNT ever did. It was the World Cup of Soccer in 1990. They had just come on the air, and I was hired as one of the play-by-play guys way back then, and went over to Italy for 5 weeks for the World Cup. And the woman who hired me, or was on our crew for that 1990 World Cup, was the woman who ended up hiring me for hockey. So full circle with TNT. But yeah, got to do a few games, got to do a Colorado-Nashville game, a couple of the Edmonton LA Kings games, and it was a lot of fun. And again, I can't say enough about TNT.
Well, that leads me to
First-class people.
That leads me to my first question. Do you think they changed how hockey is called from now? Do you think it's going to skew towards the way TNT is doing it and away from the old guys just sitting in front of a screen and being boring?
Yeah, I think it's pushing the needle along here as the NHL attempts to change its demographic from being a sport that maybe isn't as cutting edge with young people and things like that. And the more people you can bring under the tent that normally wouldn't. I mean, just an example, and I don't mean to dwell on this TNT thing, but the fact that Charles Barkley would walk in every once in a while, and he's a hockey fan, and come on set and chat with Gretzky and goof around with him. I mean, that just opens it up to so many more people who are looking at this saying, hey, this must be cool because Charles Barkley thinks it's cool, and so on and so on. So I think that I'm not going to say that Rogers Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada is going to do everything the way TNT did it, but it just gives everybody an idea that there's more than one way of doing it.
Absolutely.
Hey, Honor, you pick up a great point. And for the people that don't get to see a lot of San Jose games, I'll watch San Jose. Obviously, the last couple of years has been a little bit rough. So for you and Etiken and Jamie Baker to do it, you've got to kind of step it up in a lot of nights because the games just haven't been, the team just hasn't been as good as it has been in the past. But you touched on it, and I want you to kind of go maybe a little further into it. Bringing guys like Charles Barkley on, but entertainment. And that's kind of, I think, the thing that I love watching you guys. I love your call on the game, but originally you're from Canada, right?
Yep.
And Sportsnet. We all grew up with Hockey Night in Canada. There it is, right there.
Canadian as fuck.
It's right there.
Watch your language. This is a very Christian show.
Thank you.
That's right. Ian will be fundraising later. But tell me some of the things that you've seen them do. You got to work with them, but you're with the Sharks. I mean, and I think you guys do such a good job. But tell me some of the things that you saw that TNT did. You mentioned a couple, but things that you've kind of incorporated or thought, hey, this is something we can carry forward with on our own Sharks broadcast as, we try and grow the game and keep people interested. Well, the Sharks are kind of retooling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, the TV business is like a lot of things at the local or regional level. It's budgeted at a way different level than what TNT is able to spend on a show. So TNT made the shows bigger. I mean, all the games I did, there was me doing play-by-play. I had a color commentator. We had an inside. We had a reporter at every game, and then an inside the glass. So we had 4 broadcasters on each show. Now, at the local level, you're probably not going to get that as much, just from the cost standpoint alone. But they made the shows feel bigger because they included a lot more voices. And then in the studio, yeah, there was the nuts and bolts about hockey, and especially so in the playoffs. But they still, particularly in the regular season, with Paul Bissonnette on the set, and even Rick Tocchet. I mean, it was genius the way they put the panel together, because Talk and Gretz are great buddies. They go back to the Arizona Coyotes days when Wayne was a coach and a part owner and whatever, and Tocchet was there as well. And they have a great history. So there's a trust between Gretz and Talk, so that Rick could get Wayne to come out of his shell a little, because we all know Wayne from a certain distance. I was fortunate enough to be in Edmonton doing TV when Gretzky was playing there. Then I went to the LA Kings as a broadcaster, and he was there. And it was that point I said, Wayne, quit following me around, bug off. But he just kept following wherever I went. But when you get to know Wayne a little bit, of course, off camera and off mic, he's great and he's outspoken and funny. But then, he's a little more conservative when the red light comes on and things like that too. But it was genius having Tocchet there, because he was able to get Wayne to come out of his shell a little bit. And then they had a kind of a rotating person. Anson Carter was there from time to time, who does an excellent job on the Rangers broadcast. And it was just a nice blend, and it wasn't always serious. They did fun things. And I think that's the takeaway to your point, as we try and grow this game at the local and regional level where the budgets are smaller. Hey, it's fun. And my theory always was, and I worked with Drew Remenda for 13 years, and actually he's back with our broadcasts again now. He was brought back out of he was in detention for about 2 or 3 years.
You get a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, he went to work for the Oilers for a while. I think he fell out of favor with the Sharks, but they finally let him back in. So, but our theory was there's 3 people watching this game. There's him, there's me, and the viewer. And let's have fun, and let's make it more about enjoyment and having a good time and kibitzing back and forth a little bit, instead of hockey being church, which all of us being Canadians, if you grew up watching Hockey Night in Canada, it was serious business. And you better not have any fun, or, you're going to be in trouble. And I think that's the biggest shift we're seeing, is people are having fun. And if you're asking people to spend 2.5, 3 hours of their evening watching your game, especially on a regular basis, your broadcast, it better be fun for them. Even if the team isn't winning, even if they're not making the playoffs, entertain me. That's why we love Ian Baggs so much, because he always entertains. Even if there's only 8 people in the club.
That's right.
Hey, I don't know.
He doesn't win very much, but he entertains everybody.
I'm the Arizona Coyotes of comedy.
You just got carved.
That's funny, because the Sharks just built a new rink for their American Hockey League team, the San Jose Barracuda. Uh-huh. If sold out, that rink will seat more than the Mullet Center. That's actually. Did you see that?
It's supposed to be the Mullet, and it just was spelt mullet, or was it?
Okay. Yeah, that's very Canadian of you, going with the French pronunciation. Yeah, they'll probably try and push that to make the Mullet family feel good, but it's the Mullet Center. Come on.
If they what they should do is they should have a lot of fans in one end. Like, it should look like a mullet, so all the fans sit on one end, and just the businesses on one side. So it's very short on one side and then long on the other.
I hope they embrace it, because there's no way people aren't going to call it that. They just are. So, lean into it.
Well, that's the big thing, Rand. I think you got to lean into your scars and stuff like that. And then if you're able to joke with it, other people are able to joke with it. They don't think you're taking yourself too seriously and back away. So now they're having fun with you. They might have never been to a game, but hear this stupid name. Let's go have some beers and see what this is all about. And then the next thing you know, they're fans. So,
and what I will say about that rink is that there won't be a bad seat, because there's, about 4,000 of them. And the mock-ups I've seen of it's going to be quite an experience. Can you imagine when some of the big teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're always a huge draw in Arizona because of all the snowbirds who winter there and want to see the Canadian teams come in, teams like Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. It will be unbelievable.
I disagree with you. There will be some bad seats in there, and they are on the home bench.
Yeah, it's gonna be 18-2.
How did you start out, Randy? How did you start calling games?
I called the very first play-by-play in my life was called in Whitehorse, where I went to high school in the Yukon Territory. Whitehorse, where the men are men and the Huskies are nervous. But that's where I started as a 15-year-old in high school.
Same voice.
Yeah, right. And I got to do they have a winter carnival in Whitehorse. It still exists, called the Sourdough Rendezvous, Gold Rush and sourdough and all that stuff. Yeah. And they have an annual dog sled race. It's not the Iditarod, but it's their little version of it on the Yukon River. And I was asked to do the play-by-play, or as my good friend Bob Miller, the now Hall of Fame broadcaster for the LA Kings, says, the paw-by-paw of the Sourdough Rendezvous dog sled race. So they put me up on a bluff at the city dump. This is where I broke in. I broke in at the dump. It can't, you can't go any lower than that. But I was up high at the dump, looking down at the river, and my color commentator was Chief George Van Bibber. He was the Aboriginal chief of the local native band. George was doing color, and he knew the difference between one dog and the other, and I didn't. They were just a bunch of dogs to me. Right. And I think that the mushers, the guys controlling the sleds, had numbers, but we were looking through binoculars, and it was a disaster. I'm glad there's no tape, but broke in with the great George Van Bibber at the dump in Whitehorse.
I thought you said Van Bitter. That's what you said, his name, Van Bitter.
No, he was after the broadcast, but
no doubt sitting in the dump. By the way, very Canadian, Jeff, to be at the dump having the best. Where we grew up, Randy, in Terrace, British Columbia, you would take people to the dump to see the black bears. And every so often you'd get the great Kermode white bear would come walking by.
Wow. Well, in full circle, about 3 weeks ago, and I'm still checking if I set the Guinness Book of Records for procrastination. But after living in the U.S. for 40 years, 3 weeks ago, I got my U.S. citizenship. And the swearing in ceremony was drive-through. And you got in a line and you handed your permanent resident card, also known as a green card. You handed that through your window, and then now they know you're there. And then you got up to the front of the line. You got out of your car, you stood in the parking lot, did your pledge of the allegiance, and then got back. Yeah, exactly. And got back in your car, roll down your window. They hand you your certificate of citizenship through the driver's side window and say, please leave. And the whole thing was in front of a dumpster.
That's awesome.
Tells you about America.
Back to your roots.
Back to your roots, on fire.
Honor. So, Hahn, Ian and I have this conversation about you once in a while, because I knew you were from up there. Well, he did too. But we could have looked up where you came from, but you said Whitehorse. We think you came from different parts of Canada. Where were you born up there, or where did you spend most of your time as a kid? Was it Whitehorse, or was it where were you?
It was Edmonton. I was born in Edmonton, and went to elementary and junior high school in Edmonton. And then when I was about 12 years old, my father was changing businesses, and he became a contractor, and he heard about opportunities in Whitehorse. And, you're 12 and you already live in a cold place in Edmonton. I mean, how much colder can it get? Right. It can get colder. But anyway, when you're 12, you don't care. Went to Whitehorse, and that's where I went to high school. And, as I look back on it, and even though it was the paw-by-paw of a dog sled race, had we not made that move, I'm not sure I ever would have got the opportunity. I mean, I was 15 years old, and I was getting paid to do a radio show in Whitehorse. The odds of that happening in Edmonton would have been minuscule, and probably would have never happened. I don't know if I would have gravitated to the business, but that move to Whitehorse and all that when I was a young lad turned out to be my life's work. I mean, it's all I've ever done. This will be my 32nd year with the Sharks, and I'm completely unqualified, clearly, to do anything else. And if I screw this up, I'll be under a bridge in about 6 weeks.
I love it. I think you're so right, Randy. I think people have to realize when things happen, you don't know the opportunity that you're going to be given. And you being able to do that at 15, where you wouldn't have been able to do that at Edmonton, is huge. And it changes a kid's life forever, I had for me, it was going from Terrace to Vancouver, and that first jump, nothing else mattered. I just went to New York. Didn't even faze me, because I was already gone. So now I can just keep going. So yeah, I like it. I love that the dog sled team brought you to NHL. And did you play hockey growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it's mandatory, right? I think I almost played as much street hockey in the summer with my buddies than we actually did play organized hockey. But we would in Edmonton, when I was still living there, I mean, Saturday morning was mandatory. in most Canadian cities and towns, there's that local rink back then that you would just jump over the boards. We'd meet at 7 o'clock in the morning. Everybody would bring a snow shovel. We'd clear half the rink off that the snow had fallen on the night before, and we would just play until the figure skaters came at 9 and we got kicked off by the rink attendant. But then that was also when the hot chocolate shack opened up. So, you could go in there and warm up and have a cup of cocoa. That was just what you did as a kid. And then in the summer, you played with a tennis ball on the street with a plastic blade that you screwed onto a broken shaft. And, it's just so much of a part of your life was then. I'm sure things are a little bit different now as so many more sports have taken hold. But that's just what you did. You didn't really think about that you didn't have a choice. But then it was in the summertime, we also played baseball. We played soccer. We even played cricket. It wasn't just hockey all the time, but I was never talented enough to play it beyond just recreation.
I love that the figure skaters were big ladies and just came out and kicked the kids off the ice. It's time to figure skate now, boys. They
had the swagger, right? The figure skaters swagger, eh?
Well, you got those jackets they wear. I'm always envious when I see those. I'm like, those are fantastic. Hunter, so you've been at this a long time. You obviously, Whitehorse, for the people that don't know where that is, that's way up there.
Mile 918 of the Alaska Highway.
Yeah, like you got to go through Whitehorse to get to Alaska, right? So I guess my question to you is, so now you've called the dog sled race and you're a broadcaster. Take us through the trail, or I know you touched on Edmonton and LA before San Jose, but take us through kind of how you got your start. And the people you looked up to, because there's a broadcaster that Ian and I talk about just about every show other than you, and we just love. And so kind of who did you look up to? You brought up Bob Miller, who's fantastic. We love him. But who'd you look up to as a kid, and then kind of the trail that got you to where you are today?
Well, I had some great mentors. I had some great people that helped me while I was still in Whitehorse doing that dog sled period of my life. The Montreal Canadiens came up there one summer for a softball tournament. They had won the Stanley Cup that spring, and they flew the team up to Whitehorse to play softball, and they took them on a fly-in fishing trip. And Bill Good Jr. From CBC, from Hockey Night in Canada, came along with them to document the trip and do a report for Hockey Night in Canada. And I was covering it for the local CBC radio in Whitehorse. And Bill kind of took me under his wing and said, if you ever get down to Vancouver, give me a call. Well, sure enough, I got admitted to UBC, called Bill, and he says, come up to the house and have dinner and we'll talk. And next thing I know, I'm meeting another Vancouver broadcaster, J. Paul McConnell. And the next thing I know, I'm working at CKWX radio on the Jim Fraser show doing the sports. So between Bill Good Jr. Taking me under his wing and introducing me to JP, I was right in the middle of the Vancouver media. I then went to work for a guy who I'm sure you crossed paths with, Sharpie. I hope you go by Sharpie. Al Davidson. Do you remember Big Al from CKNW?
Yes, I do.
Just a larger than life personality there. He hired me. And at that point, I was working alongside Jim Hewson, who had just come over from Brandon. So Jim and I were both working at CKNW at the same time, but I wanted to get a chance in television. And the guy who really helped me was Bernie Pascal, who's now retired, the longtime Vancouver sportscaster. And his son is married to Cassie Campbell. Bernie had me come into the BCTV studios in Vancouver to record a demo tape because his friend in Edmonton, the sports director, Al McCann, was looking for a new young guy to come in and do sports. So I did an audition tape. I had a mullet, I think. I had a mullet. I had a big mustache, definitely a look for radio. I did this demo. Bernie goes back into an edit studio with me to look at it. We look at the demo together. And he says, do you really want this job in TV? And I said, yeah. He says, go get a haircut, shave off that ridiculous mustache, come back tomorrow and let's do it again. So I walked out of there kind of shocked, like, do I really have to do this? And then I thought, yeah, this is what I got to do. So I went to the barber shop, got her taken down to the nubs, took off the mustache, came back next day, did the tape. He sent it to Edmonton. I get a call 5 days later. Would you like to come and work here? So those are some of the people along the way who have really been influential in pushing me along in my career. And also at CKNW, Jim Robson was just a terrific mentor, just by being able to work there and listen to him do the games every night with Tom Larscheid on the radio. And those guys mean a lot to me. And whenever I see him, it's just such a treat, because just by osmosis, you pick up so much from somebody like Jim, who was the ultimate professional in the NHL. And I mentioned Bob Miller, another great mentor to me along the way. And there have been many. A guy who I don't know if you would have played against him. You might have, although he might have predated you. Pete Stemkowski, the former New York Ranger, a good Winnipeg boy in the Manitoba Hall of Fame in hockey. He worked alongside me for a number of years and was just a great guy to me. And there's so many along the way, but those are some of the people, especially early in my career, that really put a mark on me and taught me hard work and getting it right and things like that.
Nice. I got a question, Jeff. You mentioned who mentored you. Are you mentoring anyone?
I think so. When I'm reached, people reach out to me all the time. Young broadcasters, they want to talk. They want me to listen to their material, critique it. And whenever I get those requests, I always say yes, because I remember those people that helped me. This is a little different market to take someone under your wing, because this is such a big media market, top 5 or 6 in the country. So you don't get too many people who are already working here that are at the entry level. People tend to be more further along. But yeah, whenever I get a chance, I help people, and some of them have gone on to greatness, and it's nice to see that you were able to at least talk.
How honest are you with them? How do you deal with them when you mentor someone? Are you blunt? Are you blunt honest, or do you make sure that are you kid gloves with them? How do you do it?
I think it depends. If you get somebody that sends you something and clearly it's bad beyond, there's some potential there, I think you treat that with more kid gloves than you do with somebody that's got a chance, but he's got some bad habits already. Then you have to be more blunt. But I try to be honest and tell these young broadcasters, men and women, the biggest thing that I find with them is they want to start. Like if they live in San Jose, live here in the Bay Area, they say, I wanted to get into broadcasting, and if you could help me and blah, blah, blah. So we have a conversation and watch or listen to their tape. And they say, where should I apply here in the area? And I said, well, you shouldn't apply in the area. Oh, you should go ahead, but you're not good enough to work in this market. Right. You have to be willing to go to the middle of nowhere to go and make your mistakes. And this goes back to what you're talking about, being in Terrace and then transitioning to Vancouver and then going on to New York. Along the way, you've got to find places where you can go and be bad. And I was allowed to be on the radio in Whitehorse, where it didn't really matter if I sucked one day, because that was the only station they had. And, they were kind of used to not the best being on the air there. But that's where you make your mistakes. That's where you do your reps. That's where you get a little bit better every time. And it's the most frustrating thing to me when somebody like that will say, well, I would never want to leave California, or I would never want to leave the Bay Area. And then to myself, I'm saying, well, then, it's really a long shot that you're going to make it.
Hey, Hunter, just talking about the people that influenced you, like, and what you're trying to do now. Jim Robson would have to go down. We grew up listening to him and just loved him. Would still wished he was still calling the games, although Shorthouse does a great job in Vancouver. So he has his signature kind of saying, which was, take a minute to say hello to all the shut-ins and the people that can't get out to hockey games.
And the blind.
Thank you. I should have you read it off. But, he was able to connect, right? And I mean, we were listening up in Terrace, and we didn't always get the games on the local radio station. Now they do. But so I was telling Ian, my dad had this fancy radio, but I would tune in to CKNW to listen to the Canucks games and listen to him. What do you have a signature saying, or do you try and get something across every night? And I apologize if you do, because we listen to you all the time, but I'm trying to think if you kind of have a little bit of Jim Robson in you because he influenced you so much, or Bob Miller.
At the beginning, I did try and come up with something that was Jim Robson-ish, but very early, I felt that it was just too contrived and too close to what he did. And I'm not one of those guys who has a signature call per se, although I have little calls along the way that I throw in there from time to time that are kind of like running jokes with the viewer that is familiar with my work, like icing on the power play, and that's never good, something like that. Some of them I've had to clean up now because, as things have become more politically correct and sensitive on the air, you can't say them as much, but on here, Ian said I could say whatever I want. And, if the team scores into the empty net, when the game's on the line, but okay, that's it, and fans start filing out of the arena, I would refer to that as premature evacuation, because the game's not over yet, but they're already leaving, and things of that nature, and just little catchphrases like that fans would pick up on. And of course, the one that's blown up the most is whenever we're playing the Coyotes, and one of their nicknames is Desert Dogs, and there is now a full-on drinking game whenever the Sharks play the Coyotes, and every time Randy Hahn says or refers to them as Desert Dogs, you have to do a shot. So this is arranged online on Twitter before the game starts, and everybody's communicating, or on Reddit or wherever they are, and then it's on. And I always try and get about 3 or 4 or 5 in the first period, so everybody's good and liquored up by the second period in case it's a crappy game or in case I'm no good.
I love it. Hockey's Harry Carey.
Hey, everybody. And I lived in Chicago and got to meet Harry. That was one of the thrills of my life. And the other one, a guy I didn't mention, and it's not that he had a huge influence on me, because we only met maybe 2 or 3 times, but he took the time with me, and then the next time he saw me, remembered me, and then the third time, and that was a gentleman who just passed away, the great Vin Scully, the Hall of Fame broadcaster for the Dodgers. And back in the 80s, when I had moved from Edmonton to San Diego, nice move, huh? When I moved to San Diego, I started covering golf for the radio station I was working at, and Vin in those days was NBC's top golf announcer. And so I would see him in the media tent and ask him questions, and just a true gentleman. And, that's the sign of class, when somebody who's already at the peak of their career is willing to take the time to talk to some kid who's green behind the ears, and not off the boat from Whitehorse, but certainly off the dog sled.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say off the skidoo. Off the skidoo from
Skidoo.
What are the top 3? What are the top 3 games you've called?
It's this gets asked of me a lot now. I think my top moment would be the 1993-94 playoffs. The Sharks were in their 3rd season. The year before that, they went 11-71-2. That was back when they still had ties. Jeff will remember. And then they brought in Larionov and Makarov. So we got a couple of the guys from the KLM line in Russia, and it turned us around. We had a goalie, Arturs Urbe, who was terrific. Jamie Baker was on the team. And we end up sneaking in to make the playoffs as the 8th seed, and we're playing Detroit. They're the 1 seed. And they are not only the 1 seed, they're favored to win the Stanley Cup. Everybody thinks, Fedorov, Yzerman, they're loaded, except in net. It was Chris Osgood's first or second year in the NHL. Anyway, we take them to Game 7 in Detroit at Joe Louis Arena. And in the 3rd period, with about 11 minutes to go, Jamie Baker scores what I still call the biggest goal in Sharks history. It made the score 3-2, and Urbe and company held the fort after that. And the Sharks upset the Red Wings, the 1 seed in Detroit, in Game 7. So that for me was an incredible moment, because part of my history with the Sharks also is that I was involved in the grassroots organization back in the 80s to bring the NHL to San Jose. So I was in the behind the scenes grassroots movement to try and get a team. I was trying to create a job for myself, and it worked out. And then to actually be in the broadcast booth and call their first ever playoff series win, it was very emotional. I had tears. So that would be number one. The greatest game would have to be the 2019 Game 7 against Vegas. They had become our arch rivals. There was a lot of bad blood there already, and it's Game 7 in San Jose, and it's 3-0 Vegas with 10 minutes to go. And I'm starting to think about what I'm going to say during the handshakes, because it's going to be a disappointing end for the Sharks and their fans. And you want to be respectful to Vegas as well. You don't want to disrespect a team that's just won a playoff series, and you want to give the fans hope for next year, even though we just lost. And then Cody Aiken cross-checks Joe Pavelski. The referee gives a 5-minute major. Sharks go boom, 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 boom. 4 goals in 5 minutes, take a 4-3 lead. Jonathan Marchessault comes back and ties it with a minute to go to send it to overtime. And then Barclay Goodrow wins it in overtime. And it was the most unbelievable turn of events, the most emotion I've ever felt inside the Shark Tank. And it was just one of those take your breath away while you're screaming at the top of your lungs moments. So those would be my top 2. There's been lots of other great moments in along the way, but outside of hockey, my only other biggest thrill would have been calling the World Cup of Soccer and calling a match between Argentina and Brazil, which is being watched by the entire globe, and you're right there calling a game like that.
How much study do you have? How much study do you have to do on a game like that beforehand?
You do. You have to do a considerable amount. And back in 1990, this is when the internet was just starting. You didn't have access to the online resources that we have now. So that was tough. And I remember getting criticized in 94. I did the World Cup again for ESPN. And and it was Germany was playing South Korea, and of the starting 11 for South Korea, 8 of the guys' last names were Park. And I was criticized in the USA Today for not being able to differentiate between the players of South Korea.
That's hilarious.
They
park in front of the net. Park them in front of the net. Park Kim in front of the net.
So, Honor, you also do. You don't just call for the Sharks. You do other things as well, don't you? How much opportunity, because you're out there obviously working for a professional team and well known, well respected. Your work speaks for itself. You've been doing it for a long time. What other kind of opportunities come up from time to time? And how much opportunity do you have to go and pursue other things outside the hockey season?
Well, I was always a little hesitant to fill my summer up too much, because I have 2 boys. They're now almost 30 and 28. But when they were growing up, we would go to Okanagan Hockey School in Penticton every summer. So we would drive up from San Jose and spend 2 weeks there. And it was just nice to have that freedom to throw the hockey bags in the back of the truck and go up there. We had a home on Vancouver Island in Brentwood Bay. And after hockey school, we'd go there. And I really enjoyed that and realized early on that having those summer months off, as we do in hockey, were precious, because that's the same time your kids have those months off. But I did a lot of soccer. I've done less and less of that now. I haven't done much soccer in the last 4 or 5 years, because the seasons have started to overlap with the Major League Soccer being with a team. It just doesn't work that well anymore. But every once in a while, opportunities come up. Made friends with John Lasseter, who is the man who formed Pixar Studios with Steve Jobs back in the day. And he was doing a movie about 5 or 6 years ago called Inside Out, an animated feature by Pixar Disney. And there's a scene early on in the movie where the dad's watching a hockey game in San Francisco on TV. And John thought, well, if we're going to be authentic, we have to have Randy Hahn do the play-by-play of that segment on the movie. Well, I went in, my first and still only movie I've ever been in. It was fun. It was exciting. My kids were younger. I was telling them about it, and they thought it was cool. Went in for the day, did it, never thought about it again. Movie comes out, got to go to the premiere. That was fun. it won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, first time Oscar, drop mic right there. I just said I'm retired from motion pictures. I'm not going to ruin my reputation with that anymore.
I should have mentioned that Academy Award winning.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you. There were
but you got involved in video games as well, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of that. That was fun when it was over, but in the middle of it, it was painstaking. I did one of the games for they were called 2K Sports, so it was NHL 2K 99 or whatever it was. And by that time, the technology had improved enough where those little discs could hold a ton of data, as we say, either north or south of the border. And to record the game, the original tracking of the game, I had to drive up to the studios 20 times. It took 125 hours to finish that game. But once it was done and out, and your kids are in the playroom playing a video game with their friends that their dad is calling, that made it worth it. So and now just wrapped up not too long ago an artificial intelligence project for a Silicon Valley company here, AI Marvel.com, not affiliated with the motion picture Marvel, but what they did was laid my voice down for about 6 hours, just reading random scripts and commercials and things like that. And then they put that through an artificial intelligence process, and then can sell that service to a company that just has to sit at a keyboard and say, make sure to come and see Ian Bagg at the San Jose Improv on Saturday night, a commercial that they may run. And that would then be in my voice, even though I might have never actually said that. And it's so sophisticated that it sounds, all the cadence is all normal. It's not like, and be sure to see Ian Bagg. It's fluid.
I prefer that.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, so there's stuff like that, and I just am so lucky to be in this area, because, as you guys know, Silicon Valley is where so much of the innovation in technology comes from. It's one of the wealthiest valleys in the world. Great place to be able to work and have a hockey team that, we have our ups and downs with attendance like everybody else in the last few years with not being in the playoffs, but there's lots of dough around here, and people love to spend it on entertainment and sports.
Love it, Jeff.
Hey, Randy, just talking on that for a second, or moving to one other thing. Obviously, for a while there, you were doing during the pandemic, right? Everybody was kind of in their home, or you guys were in San Jose calling the games. Now that you're back on the road, in the Pacific Division, it's a pretty nice division for teams to go out. And, you kind of get a little bit of everything. Where are your favorite cities to visit or to call a game? Where do you kind of feel where that's one of your favorite places to be?
Well, of course, going back to my hometown, Edmonton is always special. Not so much in the new arena anymore for a couple of reasons. One, because it's not where, Gretzky won the cups and all that, and they had that great run, but they built an absolutely horrible visiting broadcast booth. We're miles away from the ice, and it's very difficult to follow the game from up there as a TV broadcaster. So I can't call it one of my favorites anymore. In our division, my favorite might actually be Calgary, even though, the Saddle Dome's an old barn, but where we sit, we're right up on top up there in the gondola and looking right over the ice, and you just feel it and you can hear it. And when the Flames score and they let off that gas lantern, you feel the heat rush onto your face. It's a great visceral experience to be there, and the fans are great. It's always going to be a full house in Calgary. As far as league wide goes, I love going to Montreal for all the reasons that Montreal's a great city, that it's hockey's number one. Yeah, what's that?
Shea Perry.
Yeah, Shea Perry. No, it's Wanda's now. I've heard. I love going there for just it being such a different city and the people loving the game so much. But I'll tell you what, it's tough to beat going to Nashville for a hockey game. That crowd
Right
is
down.
awesome. You come out of the rink, you're on Broadway, all the honky tonks, all the atmosphere that goes along with that city. And it just shows you how far we've come in the NHL, bringing cities like that under the tent, places like Tampa, where you get that same party vibe with all the people out on the terrace there that they've created. By the way, I think, in my opinion, Tampa Bay Lightning, on and off the ice, I think they are the model franchise in the NHL. I don't know that anybody is doing it any better than them in every area. That's a great organization, and I think that to model yourself after them wouldn't be bad at all. But those are some of my favorites. And then, of course, New York's always New York. When you go to Madison Square Garden, it's special.
I think that's a really interesting thing, Randy. When Tampa has so much going on outside, the weather's always great, and the fact that you're able to drag people into the building, your product has to be really, really good. And it doesn't just mean on the ice. Like, people gotta want to be there, and they have done a very good job with it. So
yeah, Jeff Vinnick, he's so tuned into community. They do a and not as part of a sponsorship. They honor a first responder or a member of the military before every game, and then before every home game, they give $10,000 to a local charity every game. So do the math. $500,000 he's given away just because he feels it's the right thing to do in his community. And I'll tell you what, that collateral you get with your fan base when they see that night after night, and then you put the product on the ice that they have with the cups and, going to the final again. And I wouldn't be shocked if they're in the final again this coming season. It's just so well done.
The people remember that when you're not going to the finals. That's where you need it. Hey, how close do you guys become with the players? And do you think it's a good thing for you to be close with the players, or not a good thing to be close?
It's changed as I've grown older. When I first started, I broke in with the LA Kings, and I was still in my late 20s. And the veteran guys are your age. You can kind of relate. And back in those days, we'd go out for beers with them once in a while, if invited, or if we ended up accidentally being at the same place after a game, it wasn't uncomfortable. It'd be like, come on, boys, come on over. And then you'd talk hockey and whatnot. The gap's a lot different now as the league gets younger and I get older. And I find myself less and less in those kind of scenarios and less comfortable in them, just because, the young guys like Thomas Bordeleau on our team. I mean, he's younger than both my sons. So it's a different vibe. I never felt that it was a bad thing to be on a good level with them, because I think the more they understand about what you do and what your job is, it's a good thing. And the guys who are reasonable will understand that sometimes criticism comes, and that usually doesn't come from me as play-by-play. That would more be from the color analyst. And then you learn more about what they go through. And I think more understanding at the local level is a good thing, because you have to understand it's different if I was doing game for TNT or for Sportsnet. My paycheck comes from the San Jose Sharks, and so does theirs. So we're pulling on the same rope. So it's a little different than a national broadcaster being chummy with players. But I never felt it was a bad thing. It was always a good thing. And I do miss that closeness. We do fly on the same plane, stay in the same hotel, but it's not the way it used to be. But I think that's normal too as you get older.
Have you had a run-in with any of the players?
It's never usually a run-in so much with the player as it is with his wife.
Really?
Because they're at home watching the broadcast.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And they sometimes hear things differently than you actually said them. And then they get repeated to the husband, and it goes around a couple times. And then you have the wife mad at you, but that was
Kane's gambling on this one.
Right. But no, not too much. And the greatest thing for me is when we get to meet the parents when we're on the road, because they are glued to your broadcast. They're watching their son through your eyes and your broadcast.
Right.
And we get so many nice comments from the families, and they always come up to us and say, we love you guys, and you guys do a great job. And
do you guys do a father's son or a mother's trip?
We've done the father trips. We have never done the mother trip. And then, of course, during COVID, I didn't even travel. So all that's been kind of out the window. But we'll see what Mike Greer, our new GM's philosophy is on that. But Doug Wilson was very much in favor of having the dads come out on a trip. And one of the funniest stories is we were in Arizona playing the Desert Dogs and lost 7-0.
Everybody drink.
We have a drink. Yeah, cheers. And we lost 7-0. And we're playing back-to-back next night in Dallas. So all the dads are on the bus. The players are on the bus. We're all flying on the same plane. We get to the airport after the 7-0 loss. Doug Wilson orders all the fathers and all the broadcasters off the bus, get onto the plane, and he makes the bussy turn the lights on. So now imagine this. The dads are all on the plane. They're looking out the window going, oh, boy, he's going to read the riot act to them, right? They lost 7-0. And we're looking out the window, and Doug's got the lights on, so all the players are visible. And then he just lets them have it in the bus. And he read them the riot act, and named names and pointed guys out. And they all slink off the bus and go sit down next to their dads and whatever. And we go into Dallas the next night and just kick their ass. It was awesome. And the dads loved it. And then, on the flight home, it was like drinks for everyone. And all ended well. But yeah, those are fun trips, and that's when you get a chance to really learn a little bit more about the players by getting to know their parents.
Nice.
Hey, Hunter, couple players that obviously we know the superstars in the league, but a couple players you love to call and you really look forward to the games when the Sharks play against them, and maybe someone that people more of an under the radar kind of player that you just think is kind of doesn't maybe get their due that you love to watch? Like, is there who are the players that kind of stand out to you? I mean, you can go with the superstars if you want, or if you have some other ones.
Probably my all-time favorite, and unfortunately now retired, but Pavel Datsyuk of the Red Wings. For me, he was the price of admission in Detroit for years. He would always do something, even if it was just subtle, the way he would pick a puck from somebody and lift a stick and take it away and immediately make a play, or shield the puck from a defenseman and be able to turn him and get around him and make a play. And he just had such quick feet and such a hockey mind. He was just one of the all-time fun guys to watch. I mean, obviously with the superstars, when you look forward to watching Austin Matthews come to town with his great goal scoring ability, and as we talked about earlier, got to do some Edmonton playoff games and watching Connor McDavid. But one of the guys in our division that I always enjoy watching, and I just think he's been such a good player, and even though he's got 2 cups, still a little bit underrated in the NHL, and that's Anze Kopitar. This guy he's just been a tremendous center iceman, arguably the backbone of that franchise through their cup runs. No disrespect to Dustin Brown, but I always thought Kopi was the guy that really stirred the drink with that team, along with Drew Doughty. But I really enjoy watching him, and off the ice, any interaction I've always had with him has been of the first class nature. He just seems to be a terrific guy. And I know they're gonna put a Dustin Brown statue up at Crypto.com arena. But I hope they put one up for Anze Kopitar too, because he deserves it. And I always remember Daryl Sutter, he used to coach us during those 2 cups in 3 years with LA, said he's the best center iceman I've ever had. And Daryl's had some pretty good ones over the years.
Nice. Right on. Yes, he has.
Well, I got a couple more questions for you, and we'll let you get going, because I know you just finished golfing, so you probably got to get a nap and put some sunscreen on your burns. How'd you do golfing today? How'd you do?
It was okay. I had some good, some bad. I'm not a great golfer. I shot 99.
That's funny.
And then the back 9 was worse.
Oh.
You stopped on 14 today.
I love it. Tell us why your Canada Day party is so good.
Well, because we have Montreal smoked meat brisket. That is the key. If you've been in the NHL, you've probably been to Schwartz's, which is the great deli in Montreal, and they have the smoked meat. And I got a smoked meat guy here in Berkeley, which is probably about 80 miles from where I live. But he's got the smoked briskets, Montreal style. He trained at Schwartz's. So Canada Day, mandatory. He's going to have the briskets for me. We've got the Jewish rye bread. We've got Dan Boyle, former Shark defenseman, great, and Stanley Cup champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He makes the poutine. Good French Canadian boy from Ottawa. And yeah, we got the poutine going. We got the Montreal smoked meat, little Molson, little Labatt's, and sometimes might be a little bit of Crown too, if you know what I'm talking about. But get about 6 or 7 Canadians, then about 20 Americans. Teach them what a Caesar is. Get some of those down their throat. Some ketchup chips, and off we go.
I love it. I love it.
You're always coming happy. Next year. We're coming.
You're in. You're invited.
We'll be there. Oh my God! Yeah,
it's July 1st. Write it down.
Oh,
we've got to circle our calendars.
Oh, is that the day? I had no idea. I love it. I love it. You're one of the funniest guys out there, Randy. It's just it makes me happy when you come out to see shows and you make me laugh. And you got your boys are absolutely fantastic fellas. I love them. They've grown up to be great guys.
Yeah, and they're great fans of yours, and they love stand up, especially my oldest Randall. His favorite picture that we have, other than the one with you, is with Norm Macdonald when Norm played the Improv one year, and we went backstage, got to meet him, and then he turns to me and he says, "Go out there and do 3 or 4 minutes. I'm not ready to go on."
That's such a Norm thing.
And I did, and I tanked, and it was very awkward. But
next time I'm there, and that's December. I'll be up there. We're gonna get your son on stage. We'll get him on stage.
December, awesome. Looking forward to it.
Hopefully,
make sure we're in town.
I'll try. Yeah.
You need to get Hahn to introduce you.
Yeah, that would be good.
Dude, get the MC. Just have him MC, and then have the boy come up and do like a family affair.
That's it. That's it. No, he's got he would love to be in stand up. He's just totally into the whole culture.
He's trying, right? He's
actually gone on stage there on an open mic one night, and he said after the first 2 or 3 bits that he had arranged, all of a sudden you realize I've only been on for a minute and I've got to do 3 more minutes.
I remember the first time I went on stage, I had written my jokes on my hand, and I did the first one, and then I looked to my hand to see my jokes, and I'd sweated them all off. Well, we really appreciate you dropping by, Randy, and saying hi to us. I think the best calls in the league, and just a good guy. So thank you, Randy.
Thank you, gentlemen. Jeff, great to talk with you. And Ian, as always, keep on doing what you're doing. We love watching you online, and also when we get a chance to in person. Thanks for having me on.
You're the best, bud.
Thanks, Hunter.
Oh, just another great show today. Randy's awesome. I love talking to him. He's so knowledgeable, been in the game forever, and also from Whitehorse, as he said. So just a good guy, just a good guy. Unlike you, Jeff, complete.
Well, at least I'm great at what I am. Hey, I will say this much. I just got to get this out here because I wanted to say it during the show, but Hunter, I always knew he was from out west, and you said Ontario. So,
I did say Ontario.
I know. I thought I was thinking west, but I wasn't thinking as far west as Whitehorse. But from humble beginnings, right? And just, you got a dream. And here's one of the greatest play-by-play guys in professional sports, in my opinion. Love listening to him. And he started in Whitehorse calling a dog sled race. Mm-hmm. So
from the dump.
And people from where we grew up love the dump because that's where you go, like you said earlier. So go see the Black Bears and the Commodity Bears. So,
I keep forgetting to ask these guys. We've had a couple announcers on. I always want to know when they were playing hockey as a kid, if they'd call the games. Like in their head, if they'd be calling the games while they're playing.
Yeah.
Because my favorite thing to do whenever I play open hockey is when I get on the bench, I'll announce how many people are in the stands. Tonight's
are there as many? 7. Are there more in the stands than are at your shows?
Oh man! I'm just trying to see. I was right when
Okay, enough of that.
I wasn't even in the back. That was just
the chest. You're a comedian, not an actor. I like how you chirped me last week. So I don't know. It felt good. I'm not gonna lie. That felt good.
He also that would have been around the time that Wade beat the Detroit Red Wings when he was bringing up the Detroit Red Wings. Remember Ray? The
Whiskey Ray Whitney. We that's where he got his nickname Whiskey.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about Crown Royal. We used to call him Whiskey Wits. But yeah, because old. So Ray Whitney was down with us in Kansas City. Flats and I were in the minors together, and Ray came down for some conditioning. We were hanging out with Ray. We got into the Crown one night a little bit, and then that's where we got the nickname Whiskey for Wits. But a good guy, and Hahn talked about golf. Wits was an unbelievable player, but he's a great golfer too. So look,
love it.
That's all I got for you on that.
Any shout outs this week?
Why don't you start?
All right. My shout out this week is to I know who it is. We went out live for dinner last night with Randy Ann and Adrian. It was Randy Ann's birthday last night, and just we sat and talked for 3 hours and just laughed. She's just a funny lady. She had her birthday last night, and I want to say she just turned 40 something, and just salt of the earth people. You have those friends that are just good people. Doesn't matter when I haven't seen her in months, and just picked up in the right place and just made me laugh instantly.
Do you remember when I wore the hat there at his hat?
I still have it
at Cab's 40th birthday.
Yeah.
It looked like a little box on the top of my head. But Randy Ann, was she all fired up, or was she just?
She'd had a couple drinks. She's like, "You gotta try this. It's got gin in it." One of her eyes is going the other way. It's got cucumber and gin.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So happy birthday to Randy Ann. Shout out for your birthday, Randy Ann. Okay, your turn.
Just gonna, I'm gonna shout out this week too. I'm gonna shout out my mom. I never shout out my mom, but I'm gonna shout out my mom this week, because you always do, like Jocelyn or your mom and dad, and I'm always like, man, he just took me down there. So I got Kayla, my nephew, last week. This week I'm gonna get my mom, because she's been volunteering at the hospital helping out. And
nice.
So I called her yesterday twice. She didn't pick up, so I'm like, I almost had to send a text out to the kids. Someone get a hold of Granny, make sure she's okay. She's like, "Oh, is it at the hospital?" So here's someone that was a nurse.
What's she doing? Is she putting up a sheetrock? I heard they needed some volunteers.
Yeah, she's down there. She's just volunteering in the gift shop. But and the Mills Memorial Auxiliary, and she was a nurse forever, and she's still giving back to the community and doing her little thing. So shout out to my mom, who with Ian's mom used to have the best time at work. So those nurses are special people. So shout out to my mom. Love you, and love to all.
Nice. Love to all.